This session covers issues and challenges in designing a distributed system. So, designing a distributed system is definitely more complex than designing a centralized operating system in different reasons. For example, when we design a centralized operating system, the OS has complete access to the information on the environment in which it is working. Just for example, it can request for the status information. It is readily available because there is only a single operating system and everything is local to that system. So, whereas in the case of distributed system, that is not the case. The complete and accurate information about the environment is never available due to a lot of reasons, like resources are all physically separated, no common clock among multiple processors are available, and delivery of messages is delayed because of network delays and all. Even the messages can be lost. So, lack of up-to-date and consistent information about the environment makes a lot of design issues in distributed system. And despite of all these complexities and difficulties, a distributed operating system must be designed to provide all the advantages of a distributed system to its users, right? That is, the user should be able to view a distributed system as a virtual centralized system that is flexible, efficient, reliable, secure, and easy to use. So, this is a challenging task. So, to meet these challenges, the designers of a distributed system must be deal with the several design issues. So, we can see what are the different issues and how those issues are actually addressed. The first design issue is transparency. So, one of the main goals of a distributed system is to make the existence of multiple computers invisible or transparent to the users. It provides a single system image to its users. That is, distributed operating system must be designed in such a way that a collection of distinct machines connected by a communication subsystem appears as a virtual uniprocessor to its users. So, achieving complete transparency is a very difficult task and which require several different aspects of transparency be supported by the OS. So, 8 forms of transparencies are identified. Those are access transparency, location transparency, replication, failure, migration, concurrency, performance, and scaling transparency. Let us just elaborate each one. So, first of all, this access transparency. Access transparency means that the user should not need or be able to recognize whether a resource, can be hardware or software, is remote or local. That means the distributed OS system should allow users to access remote resources in the same way as local resources. So the user interface should be the same for both local and remote resources. So it should be the responsibility of the distributed operating system to locate the resources and to arrange for servicing user requests in a user transparent manner. So this demands for a well-designed set of system calls that are meaningful in both centralized and distributed environments. A global resource naming facility can be used to address this issue, and the distributed shared memory mechanism provide a uniform set of system calls for accessing both local and remote memory objects. This also solves this access transparency issue to a certain level. Second one is location transparency. This location transparency is again having two different aspects. Those are naming transparency and user mobility. Coming to the naming transparency issue, this refers to the fact that name of a resource, maybe hardware or software, should not reveal any hint as to the physical location of the resource. That is, the name of a resource should be independent of the physical connectivity or topology of the system or the current location of the resource. Furthermore, any resource which are capable of being moved from one node to another in a distributed system must be allowed to move without having their names changed. That is, this demands for the resource names as unique as in system-wide manner. And the second aspect is user mobility. This refers to the fact that no matter which machine a user is logged onto, he or she should be able to access a resource with the same name. That is, users should not be required to use different names to access the same resource from two different machines. So both these aspects, that is naming transparency and user mobility, demands for a requirement to call a system-wide global resource naming facility. So both this naming transparency and user mobility demands for a system-wide global resource naming facility. Now the third issue is replication transparency. So better performance and reliability, all the distributed systems have provision to create replicas, right? Multiple copies will be there. Any resource can be file or some data, and multiple copies can be there. So the existence of multiple copies of a replicated resource and the replication activity should be transparent to the user. That is replication transparency. So two issues are there, how the replicas are named and how many copies should be there and where to keep these replicated copies. All these activities should be managed by the system in a user transparent manner. Next one is failure transparency. So there can be different types of failures in a system, partial failures in a system, like the communication link can be failed, a machine can be failed, or some storage device can be crashed. So if the system is providing a failure transparency, these types of partial failures should be masked from the users, and the system should be able to continue to function, maybe in a little degraded form. Anyway, it should be able to continue. So this is called failure transparency. Just for example, suppose the file service of a distributed system is to be made failure transparent. In this case, it can be implemented as a group of file servers that are closely cooperate with each other to manage the files. So this can continue functioning even if one or two file servers are down or crashed. So any type of service can be implemented in this way for failure transparency. Anyway, when we design like this, care should be taken to ensure that the cooperation among multiple servers will not create too much overhead to the system. So designing a completely failure transparent distributed system will result in a very slow and highly expensive system, because large amount of redundancy will be required for tolerating all these types of failures. Now coming to migration transparency. So for different reasons like better performance, reliability or security reasons, an object that is capable of moving is often migrated from one node to another in a distributed system. So the aim of this migration transparency is to ensure that the movement of the object is handled automatically by the system in a user transparent way. So three different goals are there to achieve this migration transparency. First one is that migration decision, that is which object should be moved or from where to where it should be moved. Such decision should be done automatically by the system. And second one is that the migration of an object should not require any change of name. The name should be same wherever that object is. And the third issue is that suppose the migrating object is a process. In this case, the inter-process communication mechanism should ensure that the message sent to that migrating process reaches it correctly without the need for the sender process to resend it. So in the case of the receiver process already moved from the one node to another, there should be any requirement that the sender should resend it. Next is concurrency transparency. So in a distributed system, there will be definitely concurrent usage of the resources will be there. This is mainly permitted for economical reasons like resource sharing, and so this will create a situation that the process, one user process may influence another process. Just for example, suppose two different user processes access and modify the file simultaneously. So these two processes influence each other, right? So the concurrency transparency ensure that each user is having a feeling that he or she is the sole user of the system, and no other users exist in the system. So that is concurrency transparency. And for ensuring this concurrency transparency, the resource sharing mechanism of a distributed system should have the following properties, like event ordering should be there, mutual exclusion should be there, no starvation property and no deadlock property. Only if all these properties are ensured, the system can provide the resource sharing in a user transparent way. So event ordering property means that all access requests to various system resources are properly ordered to provide a consistent view to all users of the system. So all the events or access requests should be properly ordered in the system. And the mutual exclusion property ensure that at any time at most one process access a shared resource which must not be used simultaneously. So there can be some non-shareable resources like for example, critical section data. In such case, the system should ensure that only one process access that data at any point of time. And the third property, that no starvation property, ensure that if a process that is granted a resource which must not be used simultaneously by multiple processes eventually releases it, and every request for that resource is eventually granted. No process should wait indefinitely for a particular resource. And the fourth property ensure that there won't be any deadlock in a system created by these mutual requests. Next one is performance transparency. So this transparency allows the system to be automatically reconfigured to improve the performance. So in the case of a distributed system, there's a requirement that some reconfigurations are needed to improve the performance of the system as loads vary dynamically in the system. So the computing capability should be uniformly distributed. In such case, it should be done in a user transparent way, and that is called performance transparency. And the eighth one is scaling transparency. And this transparency allows the system to expand in scale without disrupting the activities of the users. So this requirement calls for an open system architecture and use of scalable algorithms for designing a distributed operating system components. So the different transparency aspects are already discussed. Now the second issue, that is reliability. So this distributed system is actually expected to give more reliability compared to centralized system, right? Because multiple instances of each resources are available. Anyway, the existence of multiple instances are not enough to provide a reliable system. For higher reliability, fault handling mechanism of a distributed system should be properly designed to avoid fault, tolerate faults, and detect and correct faults. So faults are the thing or main thing which make a system unreliable. So what's actually faults? So any mechanical or algorithmic defect that may generate an error can be called as a fault. So it depends on how the impact of an error, or depending on the manner in which a failed system behaves. The system failures can be of two types. One is fail stop failure and the second one is Byzantine failure. So in the case of fail stop failure, the system stops functioning after changing to a state in which its failure can be detected. So we can easily understand that the system is failed. That is the first thing. Whereas in the case of Byzantine failure, the system still continues functioning but produces wrong results. So this makes the detection of this Byzantine failure difficult, and to deal with such errors will be difficult. So for high reliability, the system should be able to avoid faults, tolerate faults, then detect and correct faults. So we can see one by one. Now coming to fault avoidance, the components of the system should be designed to minimize the faults. That's how the faults can be avoided. So some conservative design practices such as using high reliable components can be employed here to improve the system's reliability. Now coming to fault tolerance. Fault tolerance is actually the ability of a system to continue functioning in the event of partial system failures. Anyway, the performance of the system might be degraded due to partial failures, but otherwise the system functions properly. Some of the important concepts that may be used to improve the fault tolerance ability of a distributed system are redundancy techniques, then distributed control. The idea behind this redundancy technique is to avoid single point failures by replicating copies, critical hardware or software components. So if one of them fails, the other can be used to continue. Just for example, critical process can be simultaneously executed on 2 or more nodes. So if one of them fails, no problem, we can continue with the other one. Like that, the critical files can also be replicated on 2 or more storage devices for better reliability. So definitely this redundancy techniques create some additional overhead because we have to maintain all these copies consistent, right? So also some storage space is needed for these extra copies. And so the larger is the number of copies kept, the better is the reliability, but the larger will be the overhead involved. So there should be a proper balance between the number of replicas we have to maintain and the amount of overhead incurred. So we can call a system as K fault tolerant system if that system can continue with the failure of K components. That is called K fault tolerant. So at least K plus 1 copies should be there in the case of fail stop failures. And if K replicas are lost due to failures, the remaining 1 replica can be used to continue the operation. On the other hand, in the case of a Byzantine failure, the system is able to tolerate K Byzantine failure if there is a minimum of 2K plus 1 different replicas, because we are using a majority voting mechanism here. So at least a majority K plus 1 replicas should be there even when K different replicas behave abnormally. So totally 2 K plus 1 copies should be there for a K Byzantine tolerant system. Second one is distributed control. Here certain algorithms or protocols are used to avoid such single point failures. So proper distributed control mechanism ensure that there is no single point failure. Just for example, in case of file service, multiple and independent file servers are maintained to control the multiple independent storage devices. So these servers work independently. They did not work simultaneously because they are providing the same service. So if one of them failed, the other should take in charge. So the proper coordination and management should be there. This is how the distributed control mechanism works. Now the fault detection and recovery. So in this, some methods are used, either hardware or software mechanism, to determine the occurrence of a failure and then to correct the system. So different techniques are used for implementing this fault detection and recovery. First one is atomic transactions. So atomic in the sense, a collection of operations that take place indivisibly in the presence of a failure. That is, either all the operations are performed successfully or none of their effects prevails. So this is how transactions helps to preserve the consistency. So this makes the crash recovery much easier because transactions can only end in 2 states, right? Either all the operations of the transactions are performed or none of the operations of the transaction is performed. So if the system is having this transaction facility, if a process halts unexpectedly due to a hardware failure or something like software error, the system subsequently restores any data objects that were undergoing modification to their original states. So if a system does not support a transaction, what happens? Unexpected failure will result the data objects in an inconsistent state, right? So using this atomic transactions, we can detect and recover error easily. The next one is stateless servers. So in most of the time, distributed paradigm use a client-server model for communication. And the server here can be implemented in 2 different ways. Either it can be stateful server or a stateless server. These two are actually distinguished by the fact that whether or not the history of service request between a client and server are maintained in the server or whether it affects the execution of the next service request. So in the case of stateful servers, the history is maintained in the server. So it will affect the future request. Whereas in case of stateless approach, the history is not maintained. So if you are using the stateless service, stateless server, the crash recovery will be easier because no client state information is maintained by the server. So in some cases, stateful service becomes necessary. All other cases, it is recommended to use a stateless service paradigm because it makes the crash recovery very easy. And the third, the reliability can be improved using acknowledgements and timeout based retransmission of messages. As we know, in communication system, there can be some failure like communication link can be failed or node can be crashed. In such cases, the messages can be lost. So a reliable inter-process communication mechanism must have some ways to detect lost messages and that can be retransmitted. Usually these lost messages are handled using acknowledgement messages and retransmission on the basis of some timeouts. And also some duplications can be detected and corrected. Duplications usually detected using sequence number. Each message will be assigned some sequence number, and if you receive the same message, that is a message with the same sequence number more than once, it is detected as duplicates. Like that, different provisions are there for reliable communication. So we have gone through two different issues. Those are transparency and reliability. The remaining issues we can see in the next session.